But what men need to actually retrieve is this illuminated masculine, the sacred masculine. This idea that humans need to be pruned, and we need to die in kind of regular increments, and that's what shamanic initiation does. It kills us in just the right amount that we can rebirth. We need to have this. We need to die in order to live, and we need to die in order to heal, and we need to die in order to give birth to our divine self. So this duality that we have in life and death, and how death gives birth to life, and life gives birth to death, and so that's just what I was thinking of. This idea that we really need to be pruned, and one of the things that, one of the ways that the online world is being set up to be a trap is that it's taking us away from the actual. We're being given virtual initiations instead of actually going into the cave, drinking the medicine, and going through a gruesome death and shamanic death and rebirth. We've been given fake initiations. This is why men are addicted to video games. Video games give fake initiations, where you have an avatar, and your avatar gets initiated, but you don't get initiated. And the movement, the way that the online world has been harnessed after the pandemic, we can do everything online now, that's taking away human contact. It's bringing us into these comfortable worlds where we're just kind of now stuck in our womb, which is our home. We can do everything without leaving our home. And this is creating a kind of infantile psychology where we don't have to, where we stay in the womb for far too long. And this is just an extension of what has always been happening in Western civilization for men, where the only way they've been initiated in the past is to get conscripted to go to war and to fight and die for globalist secret society agendas, to be so I feel a call to work specifically in rites of passage, entheogenic rites of passages for men, because, well, first of all, I do a lot of work with women in my church, my Santo Daime church. The one we're doing tonight is specifically for the benefit of women. So I'm doing that work. But that's not profit. That's for not for profit. That's charity. That's spiritual charity. That's part of my service. What I want to create is a for-profit program for men that have already sort of been initiated into the materialistic world of illusion, the world of money. They already have a profession. They already know how they're making money in this world. But they're now going through soul loss where they don't know their purpose. They've done everything that their society has told them they're supposed to do. They have a job, they have an income, they have a house, they have a car, they have a family even, and they just feel completely miserable. And they're looking for their higher self, essentially. And I feel like I really resonate a lot with the warrior archetype, and I think that men need to awaken the spiritual warrior archetype in themselves, because there's an inherent need for men to be warriors. It's something that's in our collective soul. Men have always been the warriors, the women have been the mothers and the homemakers. That's just in history what's there, and that exerts a big gravitas on the male psyche. If a man doesn't know how to be a kind of noble spiritual warrior, he won't really love himself. He won't feel satisfied with who he is. He'll feel somehow like a boy walking around in a man's body. And when men are like this, they're very easily ensnared. They're very easily ensnared. They end up playing Call of Duty video game instead of becoming a spiritual warrior. The archetype of the warrior gets corrupted and harnessed. They become a conqueror of sexual conquests instead of being a protector. They become addicted to pornography instead of being a lover of their wife. You know, the men, like everybody's being attacked. Women have had to deal with sexual enslavement for millennia, and now there's a big part of their unconscious and a big shamanic operation that needs to take place with soul retrieval for women, where women need to actually go deep into their soul and retrieve the part of them that has been sexually enslaved by the evil, corrupted patriarchy. That's a shamanic task that is like for all women, more or less. Like that's a kind of Western civilizational shamanic operation that needs to take place. The way that the sexual mysteries have been corrupted, the way that women have been enslaved, the way that they've been turned into sex slaves. This is something that is a deep shamanic operation for women, and I'm doing that work in my own spiritual community, but it's not for profit, like I said. Men need to retrieve the illuminated patriarchal impulse. You know, it's like, it's so popular to say patriarchy. That is so vague. That is such a vague like term. It's like, no, it's not just patriarchy. Patriarchy is not inherently bad. It's diabolically corrupted patriarchy that's bad. It's anti-spiritual, violent patriarchy that's bad. So just as like we're living in a time of transition where women need to come into more power, men need to purify their power and discover within themselves the illuminated patriarch impulse, the illuminated king impulse, the spiritual king impulse. It's very common to say like to retrieve the suppressed feminine by saying like, you need to realize that you're a goddess. And you're a goddess. Can you imagine men talking to each other like, you need to realize that you're a god. Bro, you're a god. You're such a god. Like, it's almost comical. It's so absurd to talk in those terms. But what men need to actually retrieve is this illuminated masculine, the sacred masculine. It doesn't exist. We don't actually have like a place for the sacred masculine. And you're seeing now more and more things like men's circles, because men are craving desperately a temple for the sacred masculine. But in Western civilization, such a temple doesn't exist. We only have like sports and war. You know, like, and those who aren't initiated into manhood through war, who aren't initiated into manhood through sports, they're initiated into manhood through pornography and video games. You know, and they become like slaves. Those are tools. Pornography is a tool, a satanic tool for soul enslavement. Using the corrupted feminine, you know, the enslaved feminine, like the succubus energy, to enslave the masculine mojo. And so a man addicted to pornography is being sucked down by vampires, and is being corrupted. Their masculine impulse is not a noble, that's being totally corrupted. In people addicted to video games, men addicted to video games. You don't see a lot of women addicted to video games. It's something particularly for men. They're putting all their urge to be initiated into manhood, their urge to undergo a hero's journey, that is being siphoned off into this fake reality, this virtual reality, where their avatar is becoming a hero, and they're still stuck being a boy. You know. And those who go off to war, it's awful. Like they're being initiated into Aramanic manhood, where you kill and conquer and rape. You know, that's what we need to heal. That's been haunting us for thousands and thousands of years. For so long, the reality of man is conquer or be conquered. And the reality of women is your man either conquers or you get conquered by your man's enemy. You know, you get abducted and raped and enslaved by the man who murders your husband. You know, and that's so men need to become good warriors in order to defend their wife and children from being conquered by the neighboring tribe. Like this is the trauma that men grow up with. So men cannot escape the call of the warrior. They need to undergo an initiation into spiritual warriorship. And that's what I'm creating. That's what this Soul Invictus program is. It's a rite of passage into spiritual manhood and spiritual masculine warriorship. And I just feel that that's filling a need, a deep psychological need for men. It's also filling a need for me to make a living, because I devote a tremendous amount of time to the Santo Daime Church that my wife and I run, and that's non-profit. I don't make any money doing it, and it gets the large portion of my energy and time. But I have a lot to offer. I have so much to offer, and I think that this Soul Invictus program is a way for me to actually offer a service that is extremely valuable to these men that are feeling a deep soul loss. And it's also a viable and honorable way for me to make a living for myself and my family, which is part of something that I'm working on in myself to heal, which is my relationship with being a patriarch and a protector and one who can provide for my family and for my spiritual community. So it's a kind of like wounded healer thing. Like, my masculinity is still wounded, I've been living in kind of holy poverty since I've been in Peru. I'm doing good work, I'm helping a lot of people, but I'm still like in a state of poverty, But I think that it's filling an important need, and it's yet another, it's a growth of my journey as a modern shamanic individual to fill a need and do a soul retrieval for what my culture needs. Even though I'm living in Sacred Valley of Peru, this is a kind of like spiritual crossroads. I'm very much a Westerner. I'm Western educated. I went to private schools and Ivy League schools, and then I even went to graduate school in the States. Like I'm a Westerner. I know how to speak to Westerners, and I feel that my shamanic service is to Western civilization to do kind of soul retrieval work on what has been lost. So I'm doing soul retrieval work with the feminine. Like, my wife and I work together as like kind of husband-wife shamans, and together, like, I'm a musician, I provide the music, and my wife provides the shamanic work where she does the soul retrieval work for the women, and I hold the space and I provide the music for her to do that work. So we're doing that work of soul retrieval for women. We're helping the women who have a part of their soul sexually enslaved. We're doing soul rescue for that. And that's very, very, very profound. I'm learning a lot about that, and that gives me a lot of hope for the future. That's one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is doing soul retrieval work for the men, and that's something that I'm cultivating now. They need to retrieve, the connection to their divine self, to the divine masculine, which has been taken from them. The only way that they know how to be men is through domination, through being richer, through being a dominator, through being in a very materialistic sense an alpha male. Helping men retrieve what's lost, also helping them do a soul retrieval on Western civilization itself, like this thing I keep coming back to about how we need to learn our own history. A man cannot be a man if he doesn't know the history of his culture, if he doesn't know the history of manhood throughout his whole culture, if he doesn't understand how manhood has been attacked all throughout the history of Western civilization, how it's been corrupted, then how is he going to be a noble man? This thing about being a warrior, like, a man has an inherent need to defend, to defend women. That's something beautiful. When a woman feels that a man is protecting her, she feels in love, she feels turned on, she feels really, really, really good when there's a man who's protecting her. And this idea of traditional masculinity, of nobility, of chivalry, this is being attacked in our culture. And this is part of a satanic agenda to attack men, to attack what it is to be a noble man. And so, I have this impulse in me to do this kind of modern shamanic work for men, where they can retrieve the noble, illuminated masculine impulse and get the kind of warrior training that they need in order to fight the good fight, because like the men who want to be warriors but they don't know how to use a sword, they get pretty frustrated. Men who want to be warriors but they even have a sword in their hand but they don't know where to swing it, they get frustrated. They start flailing it and swinging it in all places they're not supposed to swing it. It gets misplaced. The archetype gets misplaced. Men need to know, if they're going to be spiritual warriors, they need to know what they're fighting against. And they need to know what they're defending. And it's the education in combination with the entheogenic initiation. It's two things working together. It's coming, so the program that I've created is actually twofold. It's online education combined with in-person entheogenic initiation work. The two working together. And this is like what Mircea Eliade said about like all shamanic initiation traditions are comprised of basically two components. He called it the ecstatic initiation, which is where you take the entheogen, you get ripped apart, you go through like a crazy entheogenic journey, and then you get reconstituted and resurrected. And like you've actually done work on your higher bodies. You now have a shaman body. Like you can now work in the spirit world. Like there's this very visceral entheogenic experience where you need to die and be reborn, but there's also an educational component where you learn the history of your tribe, or you learn like thousands of Icaros or something like that. You learn what you need to learn to be able to plug into the culture and be of service to the culture. Like you learn the cultural history, or you learn the names of the spirits that have been protecting the culture, or you learn how to work with the medicines that the culture uses, or it's very cultural specific education. So in the Soul Invictus program, I'm offering both working together. It's based on this premise that like Western men need to learn the history of Western civilization in order to find their proper place in society. And to actually like be able to kind of orient this warrior archetype, or this king archetype, or this patriarch archetype that wants to emerge in them, and that when it doesn't emerge, a man can't feel satisfied with himself. A man can't be really happy. So to like anchor the emergence of this archetype in a spiritually illuminated way. And also another thing that is creating is it's like the premise of the program is that it's a 1-year program. It's split up like a school into 3 semesters, and each semester culminates with an entheogenic retreat in the Sacred Valley, where I do ceremonial work with the men, and I guide them through entheogenic initiation experiences and masculine entheogenic rites of passage. But leading up to that, there's 2.5 months of education and preparation. And following the entheogenic retreat in Peru, there's a month of integration. So that times 3. So it's not just like go to a retreat center and then some shaman who doesn't even speak English, like who's relying on facilitators, serves you a bunch of medicine and sings his Icaros for you, and you go to hell and you go to heaven and you get this like experience, this initiatic experience, but then that initiation experience doesn't get integrated. There's no mechanism for integrating it. So how does a man return to Western civilization after that? There's a lot of potential for kind of mental illness and going and having a crippling depression, or getting attacked by demons when you go back to Western civilization. Or the city, if you live in the city and like you work with sharks and psychopaths, there's demons everywhere. Everywhere. Like if a shaman, like a real clairvoyant shaman went to Western civilization, he would see the demon infestation everywhere. There are demons everywhere, in all the billboards, advertisements, all the sexual perversions, all the anger, everything. There's in the bars and all the alcohol and all the whorehouses, everything. There's just demons feeding everywhere, And so a big problem, something I'm trying to solve as well with the Soul Invictus program, is creating a vessel where people can be entheogenically initiated in the spirit of the hero's journey, where they can actually be empowered to return and like discover their own way of being a hero, their own way of being an illuminated man in their civilization, to be a protector, to be a warrior. And in order for them to be a warrior, they need to understand the civilization they're living in. So the preparation, a lot of it is occult education, like learning like the real spiritual history of Western civilization, doing kind of inner work so that when they come to Peru and have their entheogenic experiences, it will happen that the soil will be tilled already. It'll already be ripe to receive. And then also like a lot of integration work, so that when they go back, they're not just like disconnected from their matrix. They can actually bring a light into the matrix that they were living in. So it's a kind of like trying to like illuminate the Western civilization instead of just trying to like rescue people out of it, give them like a Shipibo initiation, and then they go back and they're disconnected and they're suffering a lot. So the design of the program is specifically geared to like initiate men to be spiritual warriors that can actually return to Western civilization and bring light and bring strength and bring nobility and be protectors, and like a kind of like the spiritual warrior archetype. Like men like a lot like Star Wars and like the archetype of the Jedi, and I grew up wanting to be a Jedi Knight. And I think that when a man like discovers an actual way they can do that for real, it's very inspiring, and they know how to direct their energies. A man who doesn't know how to direct his energies falls into pornography and alcohol addiction, So, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I feel passionate about that, and like I can only help a few. Like the premise, there's an application process to this program. I'm only taking 8 men for a 1-year program, and the men have to apply, because I'm looking for special men. I'm looking for men that have a very powerful calling. They're like reincarnations of great like souls, and they feel a greatness inside of them, but unless the initiate is initiated again, they can't tap into their power. So I'm really I'm fishing for finding those souls that have been initiated in the past. They've been fighting the good fight for a long time in the past. They know it, they feel it inside themselves, and they don't quite resonate with the indigenous shamanic path, but they feel the call of entheogens very strongly. But they've been hesitating to go to the ayahuasca retreat centers, because there's something about the ayahuasca retreat centers that's not quite resonating. Because they're looking for something maybe a little more esoteric, a little more Western, but such a thing doesn't exist yet, So, yeah, I have a very specific type of person in mind that I really want to work with, and this is a way for me to like really be efficient in the limited time that I have. I mean, I'm doing a lot of work in the Santo Daime Church here, and I don't have a lot of time, so I want to really make it like very efficient and work with leaders, work with men that are leaders, that are meant to be leaders amongst men, and work with them to have this kind of rite of passage into real warriorship and into being a leader amongst men. And then they go back and then they can influence other people, and it's a kind of like trickle down effect. That's all I really have the bandwidth for right now, but I feel a real need for that, and I can feel them out there. Like I know somebody watching this is going to be one of them, I'm sure. Like I'm really like casting a net out there, and the person who, like the people who are perfect for this program are people that will read the website and immediately know it. They'll be like, this is what I've been looking for. I couldn't put it into words before, but this is what I'm looking for. And there'll be this excitement and this enthusiasm, like maybe this is the person to serve me my first cup of ayahuasca, or maybe this is the person that I can actually trust to help me deal with my darkness, or this is the person who can actually help me, or this is the person that has a bit of knowledge that I've been looking for. Because I think that like we're I love this romantic idea that like souls are re-encountering each other in this lifetime, and that right now we're living in the midst of this big reunion of light beings that are like all gathered together here now, because we're in this kind of dramatic showdown. We're in this like critical juncture. And so souls are finding each other again. Souls that used to work together in the past are finding each other again, and it's like a reunion. So I'm really hoping to meet my brothers, you know, from a long time back, you know, people that I feel a really deep soul connection with.